What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I am now here for the preview video, my preview video for the San Francisco 49ers versus the Miami Dolphins. It is an away game for us. We are, going out to San Francisco to play them, coming out here to California. So let's go ahead and get right into that. I do want to mention on CBS, I think it was CBS, they have a very, very in-depth leaderboard, whatever section on their website or whatever. So when it comes to the league standings, it's been expanded a little bit because it gives you a much fuller picture of the team and how they're performing, etc., etc. So bear with me, it is going to be a little bit different. Just wanted to let you guys know about that, but you will see as I go through this what I mean. Before I get into that though, I do want to talk about injuries because that is really important. So the Dolphins are going, like I said, we're flying out to San Francisco to play the 49ers tomorrow. And unfortunately for this game, we already know that we're going to be without our left tackle, Austin Jackson, because he's been put on IR for the next few weeks, which is, a pretty, big deal, especially considering, I have to say, the offensive line has been doing rather well and better than I would have expected, especially early on. Even with the other factors, taken into consideration, like players that other teams are missing, etc., etc. And so that is going to be, that's going to be tough for us to lose. And we already know that also Solomon Kidley is dealing with some little bit of an injury as well. He should be in the lineup. I don't think there's anything, happening there, but he, isn't likely at full or at 100%. So that is something to keep an eye on. And, our offensive line is going to be weakened because of that. Additionally, though, and the Dolphins did bring up running back Salvon Ahmed from the active roster to take his roster spot. But additionally, though, unfortunately, we are going to be without a couple other pretty important players. Defensive end Shaq Lawson is going to be out with a shoulder injury, so he's ruled out of the game. Tight end Durham Smythe with a knee injury has been ruled out. So that is, both, pretty impactful players, and it's gonna, it's gonna hurt us not having those guys. And then Jakeem Grant is questionable to go for the game with an illness. Now, just really quick, I want to mention something. I'm going to preface that by saying that I don't have any kind of, real data on this, but considering the fact that we are not even quite yet to flu season, and there have been a ton of players with illnesses. Now, the team says that it's not COVID related. And again, I don't have any, data whatsoever to suggest otherwise. I personally, though, wouldn't put it past them to, have a player and, as long as they're not experiencing symptoms, whatever, try and just, say fuck it, whatever. I don't know. Again, and I'm not really even accusing them of that. And it would honestly be a difficult thing to do. I mean, it would be pretty insane to have a player test positive and then just be like, well, they're not really experiencing symptoms, so we're just going to pretend that it didn't happen and we're just going to send them out there or whatever, right? I hope they're not doing something like that. That would be just disastrous. But if that's not the case, then we've had a bunch of guys recently with illnesses, including Tua and a few other guys. I can't remember. It's also just strange, though, is what I'm saying, that a bunch of guys just so happen to be getting illnesses in a year where we're dealing with a pandemic and it's not really even flu season quite yet. So, I mean, we're getting there. We're starting to get there. And I guess you could say, it's plausible. But anyway, and like I said, I have no data to suggest that it would be a very, hard to do and risky thing. I just wanted to throw that out there just because. But also because it's relevant, because there have been several players recently that have at least missed some practice time with illnesses. Anyway, so let's see. The 49ers, on their side, they have several players that are ruled out and are actually pretty big players. I mean, we already know... we already know that they've had a ton of injuries. I mean, Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas, they're out for the year with ACL tears. That's huge. They had Raheem Mostert and Jimmy Garoppolo who got injuries and have been out for a while. We do know Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be coming back for this game. He is going to be starting against the Dolphins, which is bad news for the Dolphins, because going into this, we were hoping to have to either face, Nick Mullins or CJ Beathard. I was thinking it would likely be CJ Beathard, but now that Garoppolo is back, he's absolutely going to be starting, and they did already announce that. So he's back. They are going to be without 4 players, important players for them, on top of those 2 defensive starters that are out for the year, including cornerback K'Wan Williams, cornerback Emmanuel Mosley, cornerback Dante Johnson, and defensive end Ezekiel Ansah have all been ruled out. So that's pretty huge. Their defense is, been hit pretty hard by injuries. Surprisingly enough, though, their defensive statistics and league standings, which we'll get to in a minute, are actually really impressive considering that. Anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. But then running back Raheem Mostert is questionable with his knee injury. Wide receiver Deebo Samuel also questionable with an illness. And cornerback Akello Witherspoon with a hamstring is also questionable. So they do have a bunch of guys that are beat up. Obviously, we know they are, severely hurt by injuries. And so we'll have to, see how that plays out, right? And how much of a factor that plays. We are actually getting cornerback Byron Jones back. I forgot to mention that. So that is, also hopefully a boon to our defense. Obviously, there's a likelihood that he's not playing at full potential because he's got a groin and an ankle thing that he's nursing. So we'll keep an eye on that. But we do get him back for the lineup, which is good. So we'll see. I mean... Look, I'm going to say this again before I get into all the standings. And to be fair though, my evaluation is including the standings, but at the beginning of the year, I wouldn't have said that we would have had any chance. At this point, I would say that there is definitely possibility for the Dolphins to win, but they have to play an exceptional game. I mean, across the board, coaching has to be good. It can't be like last week, right? Last week, a lot of people, there were some positives to take, but a lot of people took way more positive out of their performance than what should have been, what was due, what was earned, right, on the field. And because there was some pretty bad coaching as well. So they have to improve on that and do a lot better, a lot more like the Jags game, right? So there is going to be some opportunity. It's going to be a really tough game, though. And they have, we're playing it in their stadium. Not really sure how much that's going to matter, but it is an away game for us. And, they are definitely overall the better team. They got a ton of weapons on offense. Even still, they're getting Jimmy Garoppolo back, which is huge. And their defense is actually still... pretty impressive once we get into these statistics, which we're about to get into right now. So, in fact, their defensive standings are really impressive considering, how much their defense has been decimated by injuries. All right, so let's get into these statistics. First of all, the Dolphins are going into this game 1-3. The 49ers are going into it 2-2. They lost their game against the Eagles this past week. CJ Beathard did almost give them a comeback win, but they just fell a little bit short. They were, anyway, whatever. I won't get into it. They were driving, in the fourth quarter and had an opportunity to take it downfield, get a touchdown, but their drive stalled, etc. Anyway, so Offensively, league standings wise, the Dolphins are scoring 23.3 points per game, which is the same as it was prior to this past week. So we didn't go anywhere. That keeps us. We didn't go anywhere as far as average points per game, as per, compared to our last week's standing. But that did drop us in standings by a couple spots from 22nd to 24th. So even though, we didn't, we're not scoring any less than we were last week, or more for that matter, we did drop 2 spots. Conversely, though, the 49ers are scoring 26.8 points per game, which is actually good for 11th in the league. Let's see, yards per game. The Dolphins are averaging, we went from 324.3 to 347, which is a slight increase. That's good. That's obviously the direction we want to go in. And we went from 26th in the league to 23rd. They are averaging 390.5 yards per game overall, which is 11th in the league. So now real quick, there's going to be a slight adjustment here. I normally would go into passing and then rushing yards, but it's going to be a little bit different. I now have passing yards, so that's the total amount of passing yards the team has for the entire season, and then where they rank based off of that. And then I also have receiving yards, which is basically the same statistic as what my previous passing yards per game or whatever was before. So in pass yards, the Dolphins have a total of 994 passing yards for the entire season out of all of their games, which ranks them 20th in the league, whereas the 49ers have at this point 1,142, which is ranked 9th in the league. Receiving yards per game, the Dolphins are at 248.5, which ranks us 21st, and the 49ers are at 285.5, which ranks us 7th. We're at 248.5, 21st. They're at 285.5, which is 7th. Rush yards, we had we were at a 108. That did drop a little bit, not very much, to 106.8 per game, and that leaves us at 20th in the league. We didn't go anywhere league standing. So a slight drop in average, but we didn't go anywhere in actual standings. They are at 128.5 per game, which also ranks them at 11th. So offensively, they're right around 10th on average per their, all of these stats. If you were to take the average, they're 11th for points per game, 11th for yards, and 11th for rushing, and then 9th for passing and 7th for receiving. So right around 10th in the league overall offensively. For us, we're right around 21st in the league. 21st, 22nd, somewhere right around there. So obviously, offensively, they still are, at least through this many games, statistically better than us. And I think that's true, honestly. All right, anyway, defensively, there's actually a lot here because, like I said, CBS Sports was really in-depth. So let me just breeze through this. Points allowed, the Dolphins were giving up 21.7. After this past game, it has gone up to 24. Obviously not the direction you want to go in. That took us from 10th in the league down to 12th. They are allowing 17.8 points per game, which is third in the league. Again, really impressive, right? Considering the injuries that they've had. Yards allowed, we were giving up 399.3. That did go up to 409.8. Obviously not the direction you want to go in. From 25th to 27th, they are giving up 294.8, which is third in the league. It's insane. Passing yards allowed, we have given up 1,205 passing yards, which is 27th in the league, and they've given up 781, second in the league. Okay, receiving yards allowed, we have given up 301.3 per game, which is 29th in the league. They're giving up 195.3, which is second in the league. Look at that. That is outstanding considering the injuries that they've had. That's why I said this team is going to be really tough to play. And honestly, the more I like as I was going through this, I was like, man, this is going to be quite a bit harder than, despite the injuries, quite a bit harder than I was even expecting. But they, anyway, they're a damn good team. Let's continue on because I don't want to go off on too many side notes. Rush yards allowed. We were giving up 133.7. We improved that, dropped it to 124.8 per game. And that took us from 25th in the league to 20th. So that's good. We improved there, but still obviously giving up way too much on the ground. So 124.8, and we're still only 20th. They're giving up 110.8, which is 15th in the league. So that's their worst stat. Anyway, but that's still in the middle of the pack. And so let's see. I mean, maybe the run game will be a way that we can capitalize and then obviously that will open some play action pass, etc., etc. So we'll see. That could be certainly an opportunity and an opening for the Dolphins team. Should they, seize it and execute, right? Good play calls and good execution, clean game, etc. Sacks. So, I added this in here for sacks on the year. The Dolphins have 9. Now, for the remaining defensive statistics, I just want to give you a little side note here. There's going to be 2 rankings. There's going to be where the team actually fell in the list of 32 teams, right? So 1 out of 32. And then there's going to be their ranking that includes ties. Right? So a lot of these statistics, teams will be tied at whatever. So I'm going to make sure to give you both for the full picture. So sacks, the Dolphins have 9 sacks on the year. They fell 18th on the list, but they are tied for 7th. Or when including ties, they are 7th in sacks. The 49ers have 8 sacks on the year, which actually, and this illuminated for me, because that's actually a little bit better than what I expected. I mean, 18th in the list, tied for 7th. That's a bit better than what I expected. Anyway, they still need to improve on that, absolutely, and having Emmanuel Ogbah out of the game is unfortunately troubling, especially considering I'm pretty sure he's like right up there as far as sack leaders go for the Dolphins. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, again, better than what I expected. Anyway, they have 8, which has them 21st on the list, but tied for 8th. Interceptions, we only have 2 there, which has us 25th on the list, but tied for 6th. Let's see, or when taking into account ties, because it doesn't necessarily mean we're tied, although in this case, there are several teams tied for 2 interceptions. But anyway, with ties taken into consideration, we are 6th. They have 3 interceptions, so they are 17th on the list overall out of 32. With ties taken into consideration, they're 5th. Passes defensed, we have 11 on the season, which ranks us 30th, 15 when taking ties into account. They have 20 on the season, which ranks them 6th. Also 6th when taking ties into account. So they're just 6th, period. Forced fumbles. Let's see. Forced fumbles, we have 4, which has us 8th in the league. 4th when you consider ties. They have 4. They fell 11th, and this is a good example of what I'm talking about. So we both have 4 forced fumbles. We fell on the list at 8th. They fell on the list at 11th. It then defaults to alphabetical order. So just for full context, to keep that, in mind or whatever. But so we're both tied for 4th in forced fumbles. Fumble recoveries, we have 3. We've actually gotten 3 out of 4 of them. So we're 7th on the list, but tied for 4th. And they've recovered 2 out of their 4. They're 18th on the list but 5th when taking, ties into account. Total tackles, I just threw in total tackles because this is just another interesting stat that helps paint, a broad, colorful picture of the overall team. We have 251, which has us 9th on the list, 9th when you take ties into account, and they have 226, which is 26th on the list with 20th after ties taken into account. Special teams put some information here as well, because this is also interesting and stuff that I didn't have, and it's definitely super relevant information when trying to evaluate your overall team. Field goals, we have 9. We've kicked 9 successful field goals, which has us ranked 6th in the league, 3rd when taking ties into account. They've kicked 6 successful. That's got them ranked 22nd in the league, tied for, or 6th when taking ties into account. Field goal percentage, on the other hand, the Dolphins are 100%. We have made all of our field goals, all 9 that we have kicked, and we're successful. 9 out of 9. We were 3rd on the list because of alphabetical order, but there were a bunch of teams tied for 1st, and we are 1st in the league for field goal percentage, tied for 1st. Let's see, they are 85.7%, so this is interesting, right? So I give you like this in particular because, you know, if it comes down to a field goal, our kicker is kicking at 100%. Their kicker is kicking at 85.7% for the entire year. That has them 19th overall on the list, but 6th when taking ties into account. Punts, we are averaging 48.4 yards, which has a 7th after ties. And, you know, there's a lot that goes into this, so it's a lot more nuanced, right? Like field position, are you know, you might have a higher average if you're tending to start, you know, further back on your side of the field, which unfortunately has been the case for us. So this might not actually necessarily even be a good statistic overall, you know, but on the other hand, punters themselves do like it when they have a high, you know, average. But then also you have to take returns into account, net average and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they are at 42.6, which has got them 27th in the league, 22nd after ties. Punt returns, we are only averaging 6.5 yards per return, which is 22nd in the league and 17th after ties. They are 5.3, 28th in the league, 21st after ties. Kickoff returns, we are only averaging 12 yards, which is 32nd in the league, 28th after ties, which just means we're dead last in on the list no matter what. They're averaging 21.8, 16th, and 14th after ties. So it is important because, you know, their kickoff returns, they're actually having some, but it's getting them decent field position, right? So things like that are important pieces of context to keep into account just overall, and that's why I've decided to add them. It is a bit more information. I will streamline, you know, my delivery of it and stuff as we go. So that's why I said bear with me a little bit as I get comfortable with the additional information. But I do want to have it because, again, I predicate my, you know, evaluations and my commentary off of having the fullest picture that I possibly can. I do not like to leave out important data that is relevant for evaluating the team, especially in a year and a situation in which it is going to be exceptionally difficult to evaluate your team because of the various different factors like, you know, fucked up offseason and the injuries and COVID, etc., etc. All right, now let's just breeze through the rest because the rest of this is as normal, and then I'll give you a bit of what I'm thinking in my head for how the game is going to play out. So as far as, you know, statistics go from the previous game, we had 415 total yards in our last game to their 414, so right about even. We had 312 passing yards to their 301, so again, pretty even. We had 103 rushing yards to their 116. We had 6.1 yards per play. They had 6. We had no fumbles. They had 1. And both teams had 2 interceptions. So through there, it's pretty much fucking deadlocked even. I mean, almost the whole way, it's pretty deadlocked even. We were 53% on third downs. They were 45. We had the ball for 33 minutes and 9 seconds to their 30 minutes and 31 seconds. We had 3 penalties. They had 6. Ryan Fitzpatrick was 29 of 45 for 64.4% completion percentage, 315 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a 66.4 passer rating. On the season, he's completing 69% of his passes, 994 yards, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's been sacked 6 times. That's a new stat, but I thought it was interesting, and it definitely helps to paint a bigger picture. Obviously, not all of that's on him. Some of it's on the offensive line. Some of it's on him. So there's nuance in those sacks, but it does help to, further explain the quarterback's performance, and that's why I ultimately decided to put it in. I did have a little debate internally on whether or not I wanted to add that. Anyway, with an 83.5 passer rating on the year. Now, last game was obviously split between Mullins and Bethard for the 49ers. We are expecting Garoppolo to start, so I put his last game in there and his statistics, which were from the Jets game in week 2. And then his season statistics. So in his last appearance, he was 14 of 16, 87.5 completion percentage, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 140.4 passer rating. On the season, he's completing 67.3% of his passes, 390 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's been sacked 4 times with a 118.6 passer rating. So I mean, obviously, if you were to extrapolate that and add in the additional 2 games, extrapolate Jimmy Garoppolo's performance based off of the statistics he had through his first 2 games, he obviously would be performing, significantly better than Ryan Fitzpatrick, or at least the same, if not better. I mean, it would be pretty significantly better. Anyway, just throwing that out there. Jimmy Garoppolo is definitely the better quarterback. I don't think that's really much of a question. Anyway, so rushing, Ryan Fitzpatrick led the way for us, unfortunately. 6 for 47 yards, 1 touchdown, and a 7.8 average. Myles Gaskin had 10 rushes, 40 yards, and a 4 average. Jerick McKinnon led the way for them, 14 rushes, 54 yards, a touchdown, and a 3.9 average. Brandon Ayuk, 1 rush for 38 yards that went for a touchdown, and Deebo Samuel, 1 rush for 10 yards. So Brandon Ayuk is a player we're really going to have to keep our eyes on. They've got a ton of guys that are weapons. And so we're going to get into some of those names. A few of them there. Jerick McKinnon, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, all those guys. Deebo Samuel is questionable, so we'll see if he plays. But all those guys are definitely weapons and to keep an eye on. We can't sleep on any of them. And then, of course, there's a few other playmakers as well, and they do get Jimmy back. Jimmy Garoppolo. Devontae Parker led the way for us, 10 out of 12 for 110 yards, but no touchdowns. So almost there for dominating. Just got to get a score or 2 to add onto that stat line. Isaiah Ford, 4 of 10, 48 yards. Matt Breida, 3 of 3, 39. Jakeem Grant, 3 of 4, 36. Durham Smythe, 2 of 3 for 30. Myles Gaskin, 3 of 4 for 22. Mike Gesicki, 1 of 3 for 15. Preston Williams, 1 of 3 for 15. George Kittle, obviously a big weapon for them. 15 of 15, 183 yards and a touchdown in their loss to the Eagles. So, I mean, George Kittle is going to be a huge weapon for them. But then you have, Jerick McKinnon, 7 of 8, 43. Deebo Samuel, 3 for 3, 35. Kendrick Bourne, 3 of 6, 33. Brandon Ayuk, 2 of 5 for 18. Kyle Juszczyk, 1 of 2 for 13. And Jeffrey Wilson, 1 of 1 for 13. So they got plenty of playmakers to spread the ball around too. Let's see. Defensively, we had 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception, and 3 passes defensed. They had 3 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 1 interception, and 4 passes defensed. So, like I said, I mean, again, going into the season, I would think that this is a team we wouldn't stand any chance against. After, they lost a bunch of players, that obviously that evaluation changed a bit. It has again changed after going through the statistics and the standings that I went through and realized that their defense is actually performing way better than I would have expected considering the losses. And, also because they get Jimmy back and, Raheem Mostert might be in there. He is questionable, but he could play. So, yeah, it's going to be a super tough game. It's going to be a road game, and the Dolphins have to play super clean, limit the penalties if, hopefully none, but limit the penalties. They got to execute good coaching. And I mean, it's just, the matchup is just super, super tough. But there is going to be some opportunity, and hopefully, you know, they can keep it close. Let's see. I'm going to say, let's say it's going to be a 30-24 49ers. You know, if Jimmy wasn't coming back, and if I didn't go through those statistics, I might have actually even predicted something closer, and maybe even possibly a Dolphins win. I don't know. I just think it's going to be super tough, especially since they're getting, you know, Jimmy back. And especially, man, like, because one of my biggest thoughts that, you know, might give us an opportunity against the 49ers is that, you know, our offense has been playing better than what I was expected, and they've lost a ton of guys on defense. I mean, even, you know, in this game, obviously they're going to be without Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas because they're out for the year. But also, you know, they're missing a few corners, you know, Ezekiel Ansah, right? So they're going to be without a bunch of guys, and then a few other guys are banged up. So, and our offense has been our strong suit. But then again, our offense is losing our left tackle. Julian Davenport's probably going to have to be the guy. That's scary. So I don't know, man. Yeah, I'm going to go 30-24 49ers, and hopefully they surprise me. You know, maybe we can get lucky. Maybe we can get the ball to bounce in our direction once or twice, and maybe we can come away with it. But that's going to be my prediction. Like I said, it's going to be a super tough game. But it'll be interesting to see. It is a, you know, mid-afternoon game or an afternoon game. It's 1 p.m. my time, 4 p.m. Eastern. So I will be doing a live stream at that time for that game. So make sure you join me for that, and we'll see what happens. Like I said, it's going to be a really, really, really tough game, and hopefully they can surprise and make it a really great game, play amazing, and come away with the W. Alright guys, with that, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys enjoy and appreciate my videos and perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.